So, last time. Oh, hey. I should actually probably look at my actual stats. So, Curry is still in beta for Autonomy, which went up because I didn't go out and hang out with IG, so he's pissed off. But I picked up a new stalker last time, and I got very professional with an armed forces person, and I'm a local celebrity apparently, and I haven't accrued any more wealth, so we gotta fuck some bitches to get some money. Oh hey, I got a doctor. It. Ben, I can't tell you how proud I am of you, Dad says, shaking your hand. Oh, that's my dad. Shit, I did a female voice, assuming it was probably like my mom. I can't tell you how proud I am of you, Dad says, shaking your hand. Thanks, Dad, you say. It's a moment you would relive over and over. Was there more you could have said? Oh shit, he died? He did. How were you to know this was the last time you would see him? Well, fuck. A week later, after your family has gone home, but you have not yet gotten to the business of moving out of your apartment, you get a call from Mom. Oddly, she chooses not to use video at all. Ben, I have some bad news for you, she says. There's a heaviness in her voice that you've never heard before that fills you with dread. You're completely unprepared for what comes next. Your father passed away last night. Your father's funeral is a simple graveside affair with just a few attendees. The casket is sitting on a metal gurney next to the hole into which it will eventually be lowered after everyone is gone. There are no trappings of any faith, since your father was not religious himself, nor did he have many close friends, but the ones you know came. You find yourself sitting the front row next to Curry, who was not explicitly invited, but was not explicitly prohibited either. Curry seems overwhelmed by the sadness in the air. You have never seen her so glum. Your mother, wearing a black dress and veil, goes up to stand next to the casket. It's not often that my English degree comes in handy, as Bill would have been quick to point out, she says with a wry smile, but on few occasions I find none of my own words seem sufficient. So I like to begin with a favorite passage of ours. She begins, Full fathom 5 thy father lies, to everything there is a season, do not despise death, but be well content with it. Say to everything there is a season. To everything there is a season, and time to every purpose under heaven. A time to give birth, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. Mom clears her throat. Bill was never one for religion, so I feel a little guilty quoting Ecclesiastes over him. But I'd like to think he would agree with that sentiment. That is, too, is the unnatural way of things. When we walked about his fainting spells, and then strokes, he always seemed relatively calm about it. When it's time to go, it's time to go, he said. Meanwhile, I don't want everyone to worry about me. Bill wanted you to take advantage of your time to laugh. You could mourn him later. And now that he is gone, it is right for us to be sad. It's also right for us to one day laugh again. You glance at Curry, who seems interested in this idea that there are time for a place for everything, plus grace, plus empathy. You sit through a few more of your father's friends giving recollections of him. He was brilliant, they say, but you also get the feeling that he was not always there for his friends, that he was lost in his own world. They never say he was kind or that he was full of love. Indeed, he always seemed distant to you as well. Oh God, I'm turning out to be like my father. After the service, you walk up to your father's casket and place your hand on it. What have you resolved to do in light of his death? I must work on technology that is better able to remove tumors like the one Dad had. That's the thing, though, is that I would much rather them be in, say, a medical field or something like that, because they've got the hands that are good for whatchamacallits. They can pull out like bullets and shit. They could be field medics, and then still have an attachment with a gun on it or some shit. I must not be remembered only for my intellect, but for my kindness as well. I must find out more about why Dad died and whether I'm genetically at risk. Moved by the quote from Ecclesiastes, I decide I must remember to experience everything life has to offer. That sounds good. You have contracted too hard on robots at the expense the rest of your life, you decide. To everything there is a season. There is a time for robots and a time for other things. You decide you will pay more attention to the world around you. Remember to check the stats screen for changes to humanity and relationship stats, which are not reported in the text. Oh, humanity and relationship. Well, humanity, yeah, my humanity is pretty high. You decide not to let Dad's passing deter you. You have decided that the surest way to change the world is with your own company, and indeed Singularity will have far-reaching impact starting with Josh, who texts you a short message the day you first covered in the Wall Street Journal, plus fame. Welcome to the Shark Tank, he says. Alright, so let's go ahead and read Chapter 3. You gave Mark an interview, but didn't allow him to interview Curry directly. Mark wrote an article that was generally positive about you and Curry. When Professor Ziegler found out about the article, he was very displeased, but decided the most effective way to get you out of his hair was to let you graduate. Mark's article has also attracted the attention of one Robot Obsession 1987, known in real life as Tammy Cooper. When you met her over coffee, she told you that she used to do classified robotics for a government lab, but left because she couldn't tell what nefarious purpose the technology would be used for. A month or so later, you received your doctorate. Shortly thereafter, your father passed away. Moved by your mother's reading of Ecclesiastes, you resolved not to get so wrapped in robots that you let the rest of life pass you by. You decided the best way to change the world was to start a business, which you named Singularity. Tammy has already volunteered to be your first employee. A year later, you find yourself on a flight to your first meeting with a big client. You are 26 years old and the year is 2021. I would not be 26, but, I mean, the reading is fairly accurate for the age. I mean, it's not saying I'm like 40 or something at that time. The past year has been one of hard lessons for your business. You've often found yourself wondering if you would have made the same mistakes had you learned to run a business from Josh. Regardless, you hope to prove yourself that you're overcoming your lack of experience by landing this big deal. You decide to leave Tammy back at the office. She's not really suited to tense negotiation. Who's your big client? Sparkin Corporation, maker of flying cars. Rudolph Ventures, a shipping company working newly melted North Pole. Gillen Medical, a company specializing in surgical equipment. A man in Shanghai who wants to negotiate import 10,000 robots. That's surgical equipment, sure. How did you fund your company? Some small companies are run entirely out of pocket, but even small unforeseen expenses can cause such a company to go out of business. Independently wealthy entrepreneurs like this option because they get to keep all the profit and grow still wealthier. But most companies choose to either take out loans, which require paying the loans back eventually, or selling shares in the company venture capitalist backers, which reduces the potential profit but spreads the risk among your investors. I financed my company out of pocket, requires wealth 1. I took out a big loan to start Singularity. I financed the company. Yeah, sure. I financed the company out of pocket. Dude. You don't really trust complicated financial deals. Having not spent a lot of time in the world of business, you figure forcing yourself to run on a balanced budget will keep you from getting in over your head. You open your laptop and go over your presentation slides. The diagram showing the latest model of Curry doesn't have anything to give the audience a sense of her current scale. To give the audience a sense of size, you drop in a picture of a hobbit. Curry hasn't changed in size since I built her. Bill Gates, Curry is the size of a human now, so that models of her type are better equipped to perform human tasks. A Rancor monster so big she couldn't fit on the plane. So I changed her size, or I haven't changed it. I made her big, or I made her normal. So start off small, turn it into a regular person. You celebrated Curry's first birthday with a new body size of a human adult. Curry has since appeared to take more responsibility, to think for herself, and appears more fearless. +2 autonomy, +2 military. However, you sometimes miss how cute she was, a little thing. -1 empathy and -1 grace. She's also a little bit less steady when she walks. Well, she's got to get used to legs, sure. You find yourself in the lobby of Galen Medical waiting for an audience with a vice president of engineering. Well, let's say the thing is that if I was to constantly be toting around such a small robot, people wouldn't really take it seriously. So, sorry, Curry, I had to make you bigger. The stylized cat... That is a word I have not read yet. I'm intrigued. Thank you, Kevin Gold. I now know a new word. Stylized caduceus? I don't know. Behind, or is it caduceus? I don't know. Behind the lobby's marble waterfall has an Art Deco look to it. It's the sort of, yep, whatever that is, a captain of industry would approve of. Curry walks back and forth nervously. Sorry about having to check you, Curry, you say. There's no good alternatives to flying for business travel. Okay. If I truly were an explosive device, I fail to see how putting me in with the luggage would rectify the situation, Curry grouses. The double doors to the Vice President of Engineering's office open, but instead of the Vice President Engineering herself, it's a blonde-haired man in a black peacoat. Just give me a second. I want to write down this word real quick so I can look up what it means. We'll have some results for you by Saturday. What fucking day is it? He calls back to the Vice President of Engineering's office. We can discuss them after the barbecue, I assure you. You won't be disappointed by either the results or the meat. Okay, so he's hitting on the Vice President. Without missing a beat, he walks up to you and introduces himself. Dennis Clark, Luminoso LLC. He says, we do text analysis and machine learnings for medium-sized data. If you ever find yourself looking for new market opportunities, give me a ring. Your first sentiment analysis comes with a free barbecue. Come for the dimensionality reduction, stay for the delicious meat. He offers his smartphone to you and the buy now universal gesture for sharing digital business cards. You examine his card on your phone. Dennis Clark, co-founder Luminoso LLC, Vericon charity auction winner of Cameo in Choice of Robots. Okay. What kinds of machine learning do you do? Got any tips? Hey, do you have any advice for a startup? You seem to be a smart guy. What's the secret to cooking delicious meat? Yeah, let's make a joke. Dennis seems surprised that you should ask, but he says delicious meat needs to be cooked very, very slowly. Yeah, I know that. Barbecue it over the course of a day, not an hour. Like a startup, it requires patience. You are fairly certain this simple tip will lead you to have a happier life overall. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go call my wife and discuss how we're going to solve the world's economic problems. Or at least solve what's wrong with economics. Dennis departs. The Vice President of Engineering will see you now, the receptionist says. The Vice President of Engineering of Galen is an old woman who claims that PowerPoint is rotting the brains of executives everywhere and insists on reading something printed out. You hand her your business plan, and she dons her old horn-rimmed glasses to read it. When she gets to your revenue section, she chuckles a little bit. I will let you in on a little tip, she says, because you are young and cute, and because I am retiring in 2 weeks. Yes? We are going to turn around and sell these for 100 times what you're charging here, so you may as well charge us more. You're a little stunned as you work out the implications. You're going to charge $100 million a robot? Oh, selling them for $1 million? It didn't take that much to make. And that's cheap, she says lightly. Medical equipment is expensive. If you've been selling robots for any less, you probably didn't get buyers because they thought it was junk and mentally added the price of a lawsuit. When she studies your stunned expression, she adds, oh, I could sit here and talk for hours about how the economics of business is broken because of insurance and Medicare and so forth, but that's not really what you're here for, is it? Will you raise your prices to what the Vice President of Engineering suggests? Hell yes, let's be rich. Let's get Galen to agree to sell the robots to hospitals at a more affordable price. Wait, she said her price was on the cheap side. Let's increase the prices further. Why sell one more robot for $100 million? They don't take nearly that much to create. And yes, I understand. I get where she's coming from with that. I mean, people are going to assume that they're a piece of crap. But the thing is that they're just made efficiently. I mean, I made curry in, what is it, some sort of university or whatever? I got a PhD for it. I'm in this to change the world, not to maximize my profit, you say. I'd rather Galen agree to lower its prices. The Vice President of Engineering looks appreciative. I thought there wasn't anyone like you left in this industry. I can sign a contract like that, but there's too much risk to put cash up front. You negotiate to a price that will be fair to the public on one condition that you will only see revenue once the bots start selling. With the deal in hand, you can now build a robot factory. Where do you plan to build the factory? Detroit, Michigan. I see a bunch of listings for factories dirt cheap, and they probably have good labor pool for manufacturing. China, common location for tech companies outsourcing with cheap but skilled labor. Withstand the real estate sticker shock to have access to the most skilled engineers. Alaska, where it's offering incentives to business willing to relocate to the coast near the newly melted Arctic Sea. This is the sort of thing I have no fucking clue about. I'm assuming what it tells me here is exactly what I'm getting, since the assumption that I know what the heck this stuff is dumb. But then that's what it did with the coding language, too. I don't really need the most skilled engineers, because I figured all this shit out on my own, right? So I would just need an ability to make it. You know, let's go with Detroit, Michigan. I live near Michigan. I haven't actually been to Detroit. I've been close to Detroit. You fly to Detroit. Dark clouds from the Great Lakes have rolled in over the city, adding a forbidding air to the dead hulks of factories that grace the skyline. Driving your rental car into the manufacturing district. I don't know why I messed up reading that. You see broken windows, graffiti, and burned and abandoned buildings galore. The first signs of life you see are near a social services center, which seem to have become a de facto hangout for much of this neighborhood. In the parking lot, you see a few tents, some old ladies playing bridge on a card table, and some guys playing a pickup game of basketball. Detroit really went to shit in the past few years. Holy cow. Finally, you arrive at your destination, an old factory once inhabited by a big 3 automaker that spans several blocks. You drive for a while to get around the barbed wire-covered wall before meeting the real estate agent at the locked front gates. "You got a real deal here," she says. "This place hardly costs more than any place in Ann Arbor." Inside, the factory is surprisingly modern and intact. Not just the assembly lines, but the robot arms that assembled the cars. The giant welding machines and the crucibles where molten steel was shaped into parts. Some enterprising thieves appear to have made off with the easily transported parts. You see places where computer monitors clearly used to be, but much of this was apparently too expensive to move, too old and specialized to auction. But you can find use for this stuff. It will do nicely aside from the depressing neighborhood. You can easily imagine robots rolling off the assembly line, plus 4 wealth. "Should I let the community know you'll be hiring soon?" your guide asked meaningfully, taking away the contract. "What kind of labor will you hire?" Curry's model of robot will perform all the labor, including supervision. Robots with human supervisors. Human labor at market rates, rather low in this economy. Following Henry Ford's model, I will hire human workers and pay them handsomely. I don't want to go with just robots. I funded it by myself, so the money that I make is going to me and not to shareholders or anything like that. So it's my money. I'm going to get rich off of this. I can afford well-paid human workers. Of course, you say. In fact, spread the word that we're hiring at a 20% premium on local wages. Excellent, the guide says. I'll be sure to tell my friends. -3 wealth. It's fine. I gained plus wealth out of this. Your factory requires a fair amount. Of course, that's not the way it actually works in real life, but your factory requires a fair amount of work to make it suitable for singularity, and you find yourself needing to come in daily to examine wiring issues, fix small problems in the design of the machinery, and get things ready to pass inspection. You find it necessary to rent a place in Detroit, and you stay there most nights. Realistically, if I didn't want anything to be messed up or anything like that, or have any sort of problems, I would use robots, but just on a human basis, it'd be fine. You find yourself spending long hours every day getting the factory ready, dealing with inspectors, government officials, banks, and balance sheets to make you more than a little cranky. You find yourself wishing you had the benefit of Josh's experience as CEO. What will your factory look like from a distance? A fortified compound with solid walls and barbed wire, like a Sydney Opera House full of organic curves and glass. A geodesic dome will conceal a powerful dish antenna absorbing the world's information for my robots. A plain old factory, nothing much to look at, but it's cheap and it gets the job done. And people get paid for working there. People are going to be very happy for this place. It doesn't need to look, I don't need it completely fortified or anything like that. That's what I have the robots for. That's why they have the somewhat military capabilities, right? Somewhat military. It's buggy military. It's fine. They've got transhuman empathy. Great. It's just a factory. You go for a frugal, plain brick factory with one kind that can be found in any city's industrial district. Your scrimping on costs leaves you with a surplus. Soon you have hired a handful of full-time technical employees from the area and helped them set up the factory. They seem relatively pleased to be working for you, and one of them fixes a problem with Curry's joints for free. Finally, months after you move in, you are ready to pull the switch that starts the factory in motion. As your workers, Mark, Curry, and various invited members of the press look on. Raw plastic lumps start their way down a conveyor belt where industrial-strength 3D printing heads lower onto the conveyor belt, emit wafts of steam, then lift to reveal a human-like head. Another machine drills 2 large holes for the robot's cameras. The next machine pushes the hollow robot head into its side, and a robot arm delicately places the media-enhanced hard drive inside. Small drills then assault the head from all sides, and the delicate facial motors are attached near the eyes and the corners of the mouth. 4 paint stations then apply human features, one color at a time: cyan, magenta, yellow, and finally black. A long line of plastic legs roll from another part of the factory, meeting a conveyor belt of humanoid hands. The 3 tributaries of parts meet in the center of the factory, where humanoid robot workers perform the complex task of assembling the parts into the final robots. This final assembly line requires a great deal of careful manipulation of each part and adjustment to each robot's part's subtle differences. This is the part that would be done by human labor at another factory, but here your human employees only supervise the process, watching for any errors in your labor's work that would stop the line. For this particular run, they call a halt after the first robot rolls off the line, so that you can celebrate. The robot that stands before you looks like Curry, but sleeker and more beautiful in every way. Your employees have clearly poured their hearts into the design, inspired by your leadership, +2 grace. Your staff cheers. Mark smiles as he furiously takes down notes on his Chromebook, although you can't tell whether he's pleased with your work or his, +1 fame. I have brothers and sisters, Curry explains. How do you feel about your first shipment of robots? And I will decide later how I feel about that, and I will see you guys then.